Welcome into Senior Living Live. My name is Melissa. We appreciate you joining us today for our webinar, Staying Connected and Engaged. Now, we've got some really exciting technology to talk about today that can not only help seniors do both of those things, but we found that this technology can also help improve cognitive function, and it could also delay the impact of other health conditions. Some really interesting information today in this webinar that we expect to last about an hour. As always, we want you, our viewers, to be a part of the conversation. At the end of the presentation, you can just scroll down to the bottom of your screen where it says Q&A. You can type your questions out in that box. Of course, you can remain anonymous, and we will stay until all questions are answered. Matt Reiners, co-founder of EverSound, and Chris Frankel with the Arbor Company, they both join us today to talk about this new technology, how it is being implemented, and how it could potentially help you and your loved ones. Matt, take it away.
Thank you so much, Melissa. I appreciate the warm introduction. As she mentioned, my name is Matt. I'm one of the co-founders of EverSound, and I'm joined here by my friend Chris Frankel. Chris, you want to say hello to the people?
Hi, everyone. I'm Chris, and like Matt said, I work with the Arbor Company, and I'm fortunate to work with Matt at EverSound to provide some great programming and technology for our residents here at Arbor.
Awesome. And today, as Melissa mentioned, the theme is staying connected and engaged. And we'll be taking a little bit deeper dive in what we will be examining today is just the detrimental effects of isolation for seniors, how we can use technology to engage in meaningful ways, and then how are we staying connected during the pandemic and what the future looks like. Now, this may be some new news for some of the people on this call, but more and more people are coming out and saying that social isolation will be a greater threat to healthy aging than obesity. Chris, how have you seen your residents being impacted by social isolation today?
Well, fortunately, with the vaccine, we're seeing a little bit less of social isolation, but over the past year of the pandemic, we definitely saw it. As you know, we're very, social beings, and we really love being with others and having those relationships and building those friendships. And, some of our biggest activities at Arbor in normal times are things like happy hour and, discussion groups or reminiscing groups or, face-to-face games. And all of that kind of had to stop when the pandemic started. And even something as simple as sitting across the table with your table mate, you weren't able to do that anymore. So, it definitely had an impact. It brought on some depression and stress, and people had more time to sit in their apartments and watch the news. And we all know how anxiety driven that can be. So, it can trigger some emotions, and we saw some definite cognitive and maybe some physical decline, and definitely some grief over all the things over the past year. So social isolation gives a lot of people a time to think and just really feel, down about the situation.
Exactly. And it's interesting that you mentioned that because, there are other experts coming out and saying that the effects of prolonged isolation is actually comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes per day, which when you actually just think about that, it's pretty mind-boggling to think of social isolation, loneliness, how this really impacts one's well-being. And I think one of the things that we've experienced and that we've seen is that plays a major role in social isolation is hearing loss. And I think especially during this pandemic, if someone, has some sort of hearing loss, they're typically more able to read lips. But if everybody's wearing masks, it just makes it that much more difficult. And looking here, the attention to age-related hearing loss has grown significantly over the past several years. It is among the top 3 most common conditions affecting older adults after heart disease and arthritis, and is also the 5th leading cause of years lived with disability. And as the population ages, the incidence of age-related hearing loss will increase, as seen in the graph from Goldman and Lin here. And according to this graphic, over half of those in the age 70 to 79 age range have significant hearing loss, and 80% of those over the age of 80 have some significant hearing loss, as pure tone thresholds in the better ear of greater than 25 decibels. And as referenced, hearing thresholds from 0 to 25 decibels are considered normal. So 25 decibels is considered a mild hearing loss from a purely descriptive point of view, but the functional implications of even a mild loss can be significant for older adults. And as you can see from this slide, where mild loss is indicated in blue and moderate is indicated in orange, the degree of hearing loss worsens as well as the prevalence as we age, which is likely to increase the detrimental impact of hearing loss on day-to-day communication. And Chris, how are you guys seeing hearing loss in your communities today?
Well, obviously we see it. It's a natural part of aging, like this shows. And you kind of nailed it with the masks, because now that everybody is wearing masks, for those that were able to read lips or at least sort of participate, now with the masks on, that muffles the sound even more. So even people with normal hearing have trouble understanding and articulating what someone is trying to say. So it's really hard for people to participate, which then in turn creates that social isolation, because when you can't hear, you don't want to come out and participate. So we definitely have hearing loss in our community, just normal hearing loss. And then, all of this on top of it has really perpetuated it.
Yeah, and I know personally, right? Like if I've ever been in a situation where I can't hear, I tend to back out and back out, so I'm no longer part of the conversation. My wife might say I have selective hearing, but I think there's definitely some hearing loss playing in that as well. And in terms of what is the impact of treating age-related hearing loss, so there's currently unknown whether a treatment with like hearing aids or other hearing amplification systems prevents or delays cognitive decline. There is currently such a study underway. We hope to see more of this over the next few years. But it makes sense to think that treating hearing loss with hearing aids or other hearing assistive devices may help reduce some of the cognitive load and effortful listening that we've discussed. People who can communicate more effectively may be more willing to engage socially, thereby mitigating some of the effects of social isolation and reduce physical functioning due to sedentary lifestyle. But it's amazing to see how 80% of people over the age of 80 have some sort of hearing loss. And we see this hearing aid adoption rate is between like 15 to 20%, even in countries where hearing aids are fully funded. And we always ask ourselves why. This can't be totally the reason being that they cost so much. But what we do find is that, an entry-level pair of hearing aids can cost anywhere from $2,000 on the low end, and the cost goes up from there. But then we're also seeing from the accessibility side, currently the gold standard model requires clinical-based testing and fitting and multiple visits to a hearing healthcare provider over several weeks. And this, of course, can be challenging or impossible for those with already limited access to healthcare resources, or, depending on what was going on in the world over the last year. But then what we're finding too is also this whole idea of stigma. And it's kind of amazing to me because, with the adoption rates being so low, I kind of compare them to wearing glasses, where someone can use glasses as a tool in order to see better. But hearing aids is just helping people to hear better, but there's still this stigma associated with hearing aids. And what we're finding too is that hearing loss, although normal consequences of aging, becomes more interesting and important when taken in the context of public health and healthy aging. And when we're talking about healthy aging, it's pretty amazing to see how hearing loss really impacts overall health. So some of the things that we find is that if someone has moderate to severe hearing loss, their risk of developing dementia or Alzheimer's increases by 5 times. There's also indications of heart disease, chronic kidney disease, mortality, increased fall risk, diabetes. And of course, this one thing that Chris and I, have seen happen firsthand is this loneliness and how that really adds to that. And it's pretty amazing when you think about how one sense can really just impact the overall health of an individual. And what experts say, people way smarter than me, it's really that it's everything between the ears that's doing the listening. So that's where we're seeing this brain function and this brain patterns that's being impacted when someone is able to hear a little bit better and able to take part in what's going on in their day-to-day. And in terms of using technology to engage in meaningful ways, this is just one of the great things that we've partnered with the Arbor Company on to introduce Eversound. And for those of you who don't know Eversound or are not familiar with our story, so we actually started from what I saw my own grandmother go through. So she lived to be 93 years old, lived in a senior living community. And honestly, her quality of life was pretty poor. She wouldn't go to programs, wouldn't go to events, wouldn't even go to meal times because she couldn't hear what was going on. And her philosophy was, I can't hear what's going on, so why should I even bother? And she was too proud to get a hearing aid, even though she knew she needed one. But her quality of life ended up in her basically isolating herself to her room, blasting her television, or listening to her romantic fantasy novels through her own headphone system, which was definitely a different side to her because I grew to learn that those were not PG, but hey, more power to her. But it was trying to improve the quality of life for people like my grandmother. It set us on this mission to try and work with communities such as the Arbor Company to really improve that quality of life and help that social isolation through better listening experiences. And I know Chris was the mastermind in terms of bringing Eversound to Arbor well before the pandemic. And Chris, I'm curious, what made you curious when you first started looking into Eversound and when we first met?
So I was actually at an ICAA conference, and for those of you that don't know, ICAA stands for the International Council of Active Aging. And there was a vendor booth, and I was walking through the vendor hall and came across the Eversound booth and was talking to the representative, who very well may have been you, Matt.
I think it was.
We started chatting, and I got to experience the headphones and how they really drown out the outside noise and how I could really concentrate on what the speaker was saying. And I don't have hearing loss, so it didn't have as big of an impact on me. But my husband was actually with me, and he's in very early 60s, but has a bit of hearing loss. So he tried the Eversound system on and immediately lit up and was like, "Oh my gosh, where can I buy a set of these?" So I thought, wow, if this impacted him that easily, wouldn't it be great to bring this back to the residents? So I brought the information back to our senior leadership team at Arbor, who also believed in the system, and we started piloting with 11 of our communities. And I'm now happy to say we have the Eversound system in all 43 of our Arbor communities so that all of our residents can benefit from it.
Awesome. Yeah, and I do remember meeting you for the first time, Chris, and we're totally grateful for this partnership over the last couple of years. And for those of you who are like, okay, what the heck is Eversound on the call? I want to showcase kind of just a quick animation of how it's being used in senior living communities today, and then I'll kind of go into a few more examples here as well.
Connect residents with their community, whether they're together or up to 300 feet apart, with the Eversound wireless listening system. It can connect with any audio source and a microphone to transmit that sound to all of your Eversound headphones simultaneously to create meaningful moments of connection. Use the Eversound system to enhance group programming, like recorded programs, live performances, or exercise, even while maintaining safe distances. But that's not all. Empower residents to take the lead or engage in small group programming, including resident-led book clubs, resident council meetings, and creative games. Provide better communication in one-to-one settings during care planning meetings and physical therapy sessions, even telehealth appointments. Keep residents and families connected with clear two-way communication, in person and virtually, while also keeping them connected to their communities in other ways. And lastly, stand out to families and guests by showing your commitment to care. Enhance tours by using Eversound to improve tour participation, allowing prospective residents and their family to communicate and engage easily. Amplify your community's resident engagement with a flexible Eversound listening system. Talk to an Eversound resident impact advisor about these and other ideas.
And so they kind of touch on a few of the ways that communities are using Eversound today. So just a couple of ways that Arbor Company, and then I'll pass it over to the expert here, Chris, to kind of share how they're using it. But we have communities using Eversound today for family visits. We hear time and time again about how it's difficult to have a conversation with a loved one, especially if they're in a community, whether it's a window visit or physically distanced. They're able to have these great visits and these experiences to connect with their loved ones. We also have people using it for resident council meetings, religious services, live streamed and recorded events, PT or OT. So it's a way you can use it in like the clinical side as well. It usually speeds up those appointments, but we also have people using it on prospect tours, bingo, exercise, scenic rides. And Chris, I'm curious, how else does Arbor Company use Eversound today?
We use it for so many things. Just a couple examples maybe that you haven't highlighted. We use it for guiding walking clubs. So the whole group can wear the Eversound system and go for a walk, and the leader can point out different places to take a look at. We also use it for scenic rides, book club discussion groups is a big one, church services, so our residents can hear what's happening. The big one for us is the one-on-one conversation with the visitation packages, family visits, community tours, so that our prospects are able to hear what's happening. We use it for educational programs. We used it a lot over the past year for hallway activities, so everyone in the hallway could participate and hear. We use it for entertainment, and I think one of the things that really sticks out to me is not every person is an extrovert. Some people are introverts by nature. They want to sit in the outskirts and enjoy the activity, but they don't want to be in the middle of everything. So Eversound is really great because we can allow them to sit where they're comfortable and still hear everything that's going on and be a part of the activity, but not be right in the middle of it. So that's really brought a lot of people out because they enjoy that aspect of it.
Yeah, and Chris, maybe a better question would have been, where don't you use Eversound? But I digress. And to your point, really, the nice thing about Eversound, it really amplifies what people should be listening to. And I won't go to all of the features in here, but this is really a system designed for senior living communities and an older adult user. So what does that even mean? They're hearing aid compatible, so people can wear them right on top of hearing aids. There's antimicrobial materials to help with infection control, which I know is very top of mind. You don't need Wi-Fi or cellular reception, so you can theoretically use it anywhere. And it's what's nice, you can have up to 120 headphones to one transmitter. So if you're doing some of those larger events, you can use that. Or as Chris had mentioned, if you're using it on the one-on-one side of things, and it really helps to amplify some of the technology that's already in the Arbor Company today. So TVs and AV systems, iPods, phones, computers, laptops. And then on the back end, you can do the microphone, and then whatever's plugged into the transmitter will then broadcast to all the headphones simultaneously. And each headphone has individual volume control, so you can turn it up or turn it down. So it gives you that front row audio experience, no matter where you're sitting. In the range, you're looking about 250 to 300 feet in all directions. So that is comparable to the size of a football field. So it really allows the Arbor Company to practice this whole idea of, how do we remain physically distanced and healthy, but still socially connected? And I want to give a few examples of some other, in addition to Arbor, how other communities are using it. So you can kind of get a picture of what this looks like in communities today.
You guys can hear me, put a thumbs up. Yeah, okay, let's go.
How are you liking it, B?
Oh, I love it.
I can hear everything.
That's from you're a lovely daughter. What else can you read?
Everything. You're the best.
And what's cool about Eversound, it is proven. So, we had a partner community group out in California that did a 12-month study with over 700 residents that showed that people that used Eversound were 75% more engaged. They saw a 64% increase in resident mood in those living with dementia. And then they also found a 77% improvement in resident understanding of the event. And when you kind of get to the simple idea that it is, the ability to hear, the ability to participate, the ability to engage with the world around us is where we're starting to see this engagement really spike and go through the roof, and how it can really help improve that quality of life and really just provide that joy to communities today. And, I think one of the prouder moments, especially in working with the Arbor Company here, is really how do we stay connected during the current pandemic, and what does that kind of look like as we are going through the vaccination process. And I recently read an article that was conducted by the American Senior Housing Association that was basically saying, potential residents and adult children indicated that they wanted to have access to loved ones and safe social engagement activities. It would need to be in place before moving themselves or a loved one in. And of these 2,000 participants who responded to this, whether they were people themselves looking for a community to move into or looking for a loved one, 81% of them said considering any level of care rated access to safe, physically distanced social engagement activities as essential or desirable. And I have to shout out the Arbor Company here because they were doing this before the pandemic was even a thing. They were really going above and beyond and providing the best quality of care to improve that quality of life for residents. And we're able to continue to do that during the pandemic. And I have a few examples here from Arbor Community. So as Chris had mentioned here, they were using it for these hallway activities. So here they're using it with their It's Never Too Late system, which is another technology platform. And what you'll see here is Arbor Company is on the forefront when it comes to technology and how we continue to improve that quality of life. But you can see they've got the two hallways going here. They're playing, I believe, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? They have people with the headphones on, able to hear still that front row audio experience. So this is down one hallway. This is down the other hallway. And this is kind of like the panoramic view here. So they've got the life enrichment director able to run this game with the people and really set that up for success. Chris, any other comments on this one?
I think too, it speaks to the social isolation. Sorry, I'm having trouble with that word. We were still able to have those activities where residents could still see each other, but be, safely socially distanced and still try to have as much fun as possible in, a different time than any of us are used to. So the technology really helped us try to keep life as normal as possible.
Exactly. And, speaking to that, as life normal as possible, here's just another example taking advantage of their It's Never Too Late system. And you can see the individual back here has got the headphones on, so able to really participate and hear in and listen to that. And then, just even more examples from the Arbor Company, our friends at Mount Laurel using it for Mary Lynn, who is their nurse educating residents on the effects of diabetes on the body. So here she's talking into the microphone. You can see people are spread out, able to hear what was being said in that. And, rather than taking our words for it, I want you to hear from some of the people on the front lines using the system on a day-to-day basis.
Hi, I'm Alan, and I live in Arbor Terrace. And the one thing that makes me really happy is I have the use of EverSound, the earphones that help me see and help me listen well and dance better, because I can hear the music and I can also adjust each one of the ears. I love them and I'll keep on using them as long as they'll let me do it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mia and I'm an engagement coordinator here at Arbor Terrace, Whitechapel. And what really sets Arbor apart from other companies and places is its dedication to create deep connections with our residents and really get to know them on a personal level and incorporate that into all of our activities we do daily, as well as the training that staff is given and our commitment to really just constantly be the best we can for our residents. EverSound has completely changed the way that our residents are able to participate in all of our activities, from exercise to trivia. It has helped boost participation, and it's also helped them gain confidence in, they're not asking what, I can't hear that, can you say that one more time? Instead, they're able to just answer and you can see the smile on their face. And the biggest thing is that we don't have to shout across the room anymore.
And Chris, any other thoughts on this? I know these are some of your people sharing some of their experiences here.
Yeah, I mean, residents residents love it. And, you hit on it earlier about the stigma of maybe wearing a hearing aid or headphones. And the beauty of Eversound was at the beginning, we tried way before the pandemic to try to break that stigma a little bit. And we get such great ideas from Eversound as well. Like they send us activity ideas every month, but one was a silent disco. And the only way you can participate is if you have the headphones on. So it kind of decreased the stigma that way because everybody had the same thing and everybody got to experience it. And those that didn't have the headphones on kind of were feeling left out because they didn't get to participate in the silent disco. So, just great ideas and the great partnership that we have. I think it's really helped us, really enhance the lives of our residents by using Eversound for those that, are hard of hearing and that want and deserve a better quality of life.
Exactly. And I think I love how you mentioned the silent discos there, because if there's one thing I'm a fan of, it's spontaneous dance parties, where our friend at the beginning there said it gives them the ability to dance. So anytime we can promote dancing and good times, I feel like it's a win-win for everybody. And I know one of the things too, Chris, that we worked on together was, this came a lot from like feedback from communities such as yourself, who started to use Eversound to do these safe family visits. And do you want to tee up this video kind of talking about the problem and kind of how we work together, and then I can play this?
Sure. So, as the pandemic started, we had this problem where families really wanted to see their loved ones, but they weren't able to because we had to stay distanced and we wanted to keep our residents safe. So, we had this dilemma of, well, you'll be able to visit if you're 6 feet apart or outside or through a window. And, couple that with hearing loss, that visit isn't very rewarding for either party because you're yelling or, you're outside or, somebody's in their bed and can't see who's talking to them. So it was really a big issue. So Eversound came to the rescue because we have this visitation package, which allowed for two-way conversation between the resident and the loved ones, which was able to facilitate, a two-way conversation to really allow for better deep connections. And, this video is going to highlight how that actually worked in our community.
Well, the elderly are among the most vulnerable to the coronavirus pandemic. And now a flagship program is making sure they stay in touch.
When we used to go to the beach, was it hot? Do you remember, Mom?
Conversations like this one have become more common at Arbor Terrace at Crabapple Senior Living Center, despite residents not being allowed to have visitors.
Our residents and our families are not allowed to interact one-on-one personally face-to-face, but we've been able to offer them virtual visits through the windows. And now we're able to offer them virtual visits 6 feet apart.
The visits are made possible by a two-way communication technology launched by Eversound. And for family members who had not been able to communicate with their loved ones, it is making a world of difference.
When I meet her out here, she acts as if I'm not there, and as soon as I put the headset on, she sort of perks up. She pays attention when I speak, so I know she's hearing it. She even talks.
Since the pandemic, Martin Wolf says he's had trouble interacting with his wife, but the Eversound technology amplifies the audio, making it possible to communicate when other technology, like the telephone, has not worked well.
With her, it's been tremendous. With myself, I have atrocious hearing and nothing helps, but for me, it's been great.
And Arbor Terrace at Crabapple officials say the benefits of the visits are far-reaching.
Engagement is one of the major components that helps all of us, not just seniors, slow down the aging process. That day-to-day interaction with the staff, the day-to-day interaction with their loved ones is so critical in keeping their emotions at the very highest.
Officials tell us after a successful test run of the program, they'll now be implementing it at other locations. Bobeth Yates, CBS 46 News.
And I think it's one of the nice things of how they highlight it there is the gentleman saying, he visits and his hearing isn't the best, but this really just allows him to connect with his loved one and really continue to have those meaningful moments. And why I really love the Arbor Company, they're prioritizing life enrichment, and they're not just doing life enrichment, but they're taking it a step further and really looking to life enhancement and how they can use Eversound to enhance the overall quality of life for their residents on a daily basis. And that's why I'm so excited to kind of share this with the world of how we've been working with the Arbor Company hand in hand to really get down to its core and its main values of improving that quality of life for residents today, tomorrow, and in the future. And then Chris, any final thoughts here before we get to questions and answers? We got a lot of time to answer some stuff for the people on the call.
Yeah, I'd really just love to share a feel-good story about the visitation package that Eversound uses, and something that happened at one of our communities. So we had a resident who lives in one of our communities who is close to end-stage dementia. And, she hasn't had visits over the past, even before the pandemic, haven't been overly functional because she wasn't able to, really communicate and respond. And so after the pandemic started and the family started to come visit her, one day they decided to put the Eversound system on her so that she could hear the conversation of what her family was saying to her. And the resident actually spoke back to her family. And it's one of those feelings that if that doesn't give you goosebumps or chills, nothing will. Like, what an impactful moment for everybody involved that she was able to hear her family talking with her and she was actually able to respond. So it truly is a wonderful, wonderful program.
Yeah, and I definitely got goosebumps there, Chris. Thanks for sharing that. And it's like every week we hear stories like that about people being able to connect with their loved ones. And one of the things we've seen for people living with dementia is, one of our partners who mentioned they'll use Eversound as a strategy before resorting to medications because they can either play music through it or have some of the audio be playing. And what they find sometimes with those people that are living with dementia and are thought to be like a little bit later stage, sometimes the hearing loss is undiagnosed because they're really focusing on the dementia, but giving this tool such as Eversound, that's where we start to see stories of people that were thought to be nonverbal or non-communicative are starting to, in a sense, wake up and really participate again with the world around them. And, I think back to some of the stories that I've heard in my personal experience with my own grandmother, who, whenever I would go visit her, I would have to yell at her, which is just like not a great way to communicate with someone that you love and someone that you care for. But to use a tool, which, Arbor Company has been proactive in seeking out to really help with those moments and those moments of reconnection, those moments of re-engagement, those moments of love is what it's all about and why we're here today. So I'll get this over to the questions and hopefully some answers here. If Melissa, anything has come in that we're happy to address.
Great job, guys. Chris, I think the first question can be teed up for you. So you talk about the relationship with Eversound dating back to 2019 and 2019, and you had it in a pilot of 11 communities. Wendell asks, this is a system currently being used at Arbor Terrace at Cascade. And I'd like for you to kind of tell us how this has grown into all Arbor communities at this point now.
So yeah, we started out with a pilot of 11 communities and, really diagnosed the benefits of it and asked our residents and used it in different activities and realized the benefits of it. So, we all talked about it and decided that this was something that we wanted to invest in as a company. And I'm proud to say that we now have it at all 43 of our communities, including Arbor Terrace of Cascade.
That's awesome. And so which communities have recently received this and are only just now getting to be a part of this technology?
Well, they've all had the technology. I think we finished out the pilot and had all communities using it before the pandemic. what we introduced during the pandemic was the Visitation Package, which came in soon after the pandemic started, which allowed for the two-way conversation. So when we started the visits with families, either 6 feet apart outdoors or the window visits, this technology really became important because, like Matt was saying, a visit isn't very beneficial when you're yelling at the other person, and it allowed for them to have a nice conversation at a normal tone and allowed, the residents to hear, both way communication.
Yeah, and another comment is thank goodness for technology. Our next question goes to Matt. Is this Eversound technology proprietary to Arbor?
It is not proprietary to Arbor. Arbor is definitely one of our better partners, and of course, I'm biased towards them, but we do help over 1,000 communities across the country. But I would say the Arbor Company has done an amazing job in terms of really taking the equipment, running with it, and Chris really addressed some of the ways that they are using it. We do have some communities that use Eversound just for visits, just for care planning meetings, some just for music. But I think Arbor Company has done an amazing job, and it starts with Chris and her team and some of the other heroes on the front line that have really taken this technology and have run with it. So, but yeah.
Yeah, and the follow-up to that, and just a further explanation from Wendell, said, I just need to know if this can be recommended to other non-Arbor facilities because I have a cousin in a nursing home where there's no visitation at this time. So how can someone like Wendell or anybody who's watching who maybe wants to expand this into other places, how can they reach you?
Of course. Yeah. So coming over here, if you just look at the email right here, matt@eversoundhq.com, feel free to shoot me an email there. They can also check out the website at eversoundhq.com. So there's a bunch of free resources on there as well. So definitely take advantage of that and other videos of how people are using it and all that good stuff. And looking forward to hearing from you, Wendell. No pun intended.
Next question for Chris. I know we kind of touched on this, that it's now in all Arbor communities, but Guy specifically wants to know if it is being used at Lakeside at Amelia right now.
Yes, it is. It's used at all of our communities for, various activities, depending, on what, especially now that they're coming back out of quarantine. So, in the beautiful theater room in Amelia Island, they're able to use the system for movies and church services and walks and exercise and all of those things. Yes.
Yes, thank you for answering. That was the next question is what other uses are you finding this for to use at the communities? And you just hit the nail on the head there with that answer. Great job, Chris. Anything else that you're finding that just in continued use that this is, wow, I didn't think we could use it for this?
I think one of the fun things that we realized was, music is a big part of everyone's life. And I think something that we discovered this year was the power of song and the power of singing together. So I think one of the things that was most exciting to me was residents actually having the system and going out on their balconies and everyone singing together outdoors and, just creating like that outdoor choir. It really hits home. So, fun things that you would have never thought of. Like, when you go on a tour and the tour guide is yelling, and if you're at the back of the line, you can't hear them. But having the Eversound system, everybody wears the same headphones and you can talk at a normal range and explain all the different points of interest that they're seeing along the way. Or, going on a structured walk and listening for different bird sounds or bird calls. It just opens the world up to all kinds of different things because you're able to hear it. And with mask wearing, it makes hearing so much harder, even for those of us that don't have a hearing problem. So to be able to hear clearly through that microphone and through those headphones is super, super helpful.
Yeah, and I know we would all love to ditch the masks soon. I think we're all trying to get vaccinated. many people who maybe can't get vaccinated, hoping for maybe herd immunity at some point, that we can put this in the rearview mirror. But I hate to say it, I think that that's going to be here to stay for a little bit longer. So this is certainly a feather in the cap for everybody involved who has the opportunity to use this system. This question is for you, Matt. Do all of the headsets have mics in them?
Good question. So the headsets themselves do not have a microphone built into them. So the way that we set up two-way communication, you can kind of think, and we do that because we don't want like crosstalk all over the place. So really the way that we control that, we have the transmitter where you plug in a microphone into that. You can plug in like an omnidirectional microphone. There's some other microphones out there that you can plug into that for some of those like smaller groups to be a better scenario like that. But the way that it works is whatever's in that transmitter is broadcasted to those headphones. And the way we set up two-way communication is have two transmitters, and they're basically paired with the other person's headphones. So you can have those two-way conversations.
Fantastic. And Chris, I think this may be geared more towards you, though. Matt, you can jump in if you would like. We have a question that came in. How can you tell if an Alzheimer patient can hear or not? And I think that that is a really good question.
Well, there's lots of ways that we can figure that out. And one of the things that, the Arbor Company prides ourselves on are building deep connections. So, yes, we have social distancing, but we still try to build that connection with those residents with dementia. And that could be sitting and having a conversation, or using visuals, or, just trying to see if they understand what we're trying to communicate, and getting signals back that they're understanding. And, even if someone with dementia is hard of hearing or can't hear at all, there are still ways that we can communicate with them, holding their hand, small hand massages, pictures. So all of those things are really important, but, just trying to take the time to understand that they're hearing and understanding what we're saying, and giving them the time to communicate back.
Great answer. And Matt, just sort of, we've heard the different uses for this. Optimal use. So a question, does this system work in personal visits that are face-to-face?
Absolutely. So we have people that are using it like that. So as Chris had mentioned, with the visits, whether doing it physically distanced outdoors, we still, and how the visitor restrictions are going to be lifting a little bit with the vaccinations and all that good things, all great things that are happening. We do have people that are still wanting to use it because their loved one, or he might still be so hard of hearing that typically visits are difficult. So they are still using it face to face. And we have people using it for like PT or OT meetings or care plan meetings. We just worked with a group of nurses out in the West Coast the other day, and teaching them on how to use it to have better conversations with their residents, so they can actually don't have to like scream or yell or like lose their voice, and really just make the communication more human rather than one person yelling at the other, which seems to happen too much, unfortunately.
Yeah. And another question, just as a follow-up, that you had mentioned other technologies. What other ones are being used?
Other technologies in terms of what Eversound can work with, or
I think
just
so, yes.
Cool. Yeah, great question. So Eversound is designed to really help amplify what's already in a community today. So you can plug the transmitter, and for the tech people out there, all it is a 3.5 millimeter input, or like a typical headphone jack or aux jack. We have different cords and different like setups for if you're plugging it into a television or an AV system, or like computers or laptops or iPads. We have people, I've heard of people plugging it into, they had a keyboard and they're playing music for the residents. So it really depends on what's in the community, but we try to make it universal, that you can basically plug it into anything and really help amplify the sound that would be coming out. And then that's on one side, and the other side, there's a mic input, which, let me go back to this slide because it might help paint a better picture here. On the other side, there's a mic input, and you can actually have both sounds being played simultaneously. So the way that Chris was kind of talking about how they're using it, I've also seen people use this for like fitness classes. I've seen people use this for yoga. I've seen people use this for like meditation or like mindfulness classes, or they can have nice music being played and someone talking over it. So it really helps to amplify things that are already being used or other technologies that you might use like a typical headphone in, but you can use this, have the wireless capabilities, and really take advantage of that range and that amplified audio.
Great answer. Very thorough. Thank you so much. So for those of you watching, we've got a couple minutes left here for this presentation. If you have a question for Matt or for Chris, please feel free to scroll down to the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. And as always, you can remain anonymous. Type your question out there, and I'll be happy to read them to our presenters here today. So Matt, another question, and this comes up based on just initially how Chris thought that this technology was so great. Her husband tried it on. And so the next kind of step would be, is this something that we can get into individual homes?
Yeah, great question. So that's definitely the next step, or something that's definitely on our radar. Right now, Eversound is strictly working with senior living communities. Being a small startup, we're trying to really go an inch wide and a mile deep and help as many senior living communities as possible. And kind of how we're envisioning the future of us is, personal systems is the #1 request we get, but working with groups like the Arbor Company and with Chris to get personal systems in rooms and really making sure that we do that really well. And then looking to go to a general consumer market, which, is definitely a little bit different in terms of the internal systems and processes and a little bit of the technology, but it's definitely on the future of how we see ourselves impacting the future and improving that quality of life for years to come.
Yeah. And Chris, for somebody who may be thinking about making that leap to senior living, if all things are equal, for places they may be looking at, do you find that this is some technology that can sway people one way or the other in terms of where they may want to move?
Absolutely. Because if you think about it, a lot of people are probably living in their homes right now, probably isolated because of the pandemic. So, moving to a community, you're getting that freedom and that fun of friendships and building those friendships. And then if you can hear and really build those connections with the people around you, your life can be so much more than it is living alone in your home. So it truly is a wonderful thing. And, like I said at the beginning, we're social creatures. We crave that. And to be able to, really hear and build those bonds is super important for your next stage of life.
Great answer. And this is, I think, our final question here for Matt, and it comes from Wendell again. He's really interested in this and asking some phenomenal questions. So thank you so much. One, for joining us, and two, for joining the conversation. He says, is this a system that can be purchased or only rental/leasing?
Yeah, so the way that Eversound works with senior living communities today, it is a whole service. So the way that works and how we work with communities such as Arbor is, if anything breaks or becomes damaged or falls in the toilet, which happens more than we like to admit, we replace all of that, no questions asked. And then a part of that service as well, of course, is the access to the hardware, but access to our community success team, to really make sure that communities are using the system and continuing to use it and not just collecting dust on a shelf somewhere, because no one wants to see that happen. And then we also have an activity dashboard that has different programs out of the box to really just help save some time and throw some better enriching experiences to really just try and improve that quality of life, and really partnering with communities rather than just selling them something and saying, good luck, never talk to you again. And then, just kind of leaving them in the dust there.
Yeah, great answer. As we wrap up, Chris and Matt, great information. Is there anything else you want to say, final parting thoughts, if you will, on this technology?
I just want to say, thank you to Matt and Eversound for giving us the opportunity to provide, really quality lives for our residents, and being able to let them experience life the way that they should, and recognizing that there is a need for a device such as this to help people. We're very thankful.
Yeah, and from our end, thank you so much for your kind words, Chris. It's very nice of you to say. I would say from our end, we're just grateful to play a small opportunity and help support the heroes like Chris and her team that are on the front lines, working with some of the most amazing people out there, and just able to play a small role into helping their day to day, and really help to empower them to make the most or the biggest difference that they can possibly make. Our main mission is to help improve that quality of life for older adults. I always think back to my grandmother, and if she would have enjoyed something like this, and I know she would, because before she passed, we were able to try Eversound with her. She got to listen to her favorite music. We could have a conversation, and we're just grateful to play a small role in the amazing things that the Arbor Company is doing, and grateful for our partnership today, tomorrow, and into the future.
Yeah, excellent. And Wendell says thank you. And you've obviously made somebody's day. You gave them some information that they did not have before, and that is what these webinars are all about. Matt Reiners, Chris Frankel, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, you can catch the replay of this webinar on www.seniorlivinglive.com starting tomorrow. There you can share the video with friends and family, and you can just check out the rest of our video content 24/7. We thank you all for watching. Have a great day, everybody.